We just heard from Lord Holmes about the potential of AI across a number of different verticals. But what role can telcos play here, and what added value can they bring, and how can they utilise their extensive network assets to support AI applications and services? So we'll have a quick introduction to our panellists before we have some introductory remarks. So if we can start at the far end with Andrew.
Hi, good afternoon. Andrew Coward. I'm the General Manager for Software Networking at IBM.
Alexandra Foster, I'm the Director for Division X at BT, taking leading edge technologies to create solutions for our customers.
I'm Geoff Hollingworth. I work with marketing in Rakuten Symphony.
Good evening, I'm David Boswarthick. I work in ETSI.
Okay, and we'll crack straight on, and we are going to start with David. I'm going to invite you to come up to the podium here because you've got one or two slides to talk to. Thanks very much. You do that.
Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I like being at the end of the day because then I can just summarise what everybody else has said. I'm not an AI expert. There's probably many people in the room, not AI experts, but we're learning. We're on part of that learning curve. So I took a few days, went away and saw what's happening in the market, what's happening in technology, and I can see that from the telco point of view, we can probably break this down into two parts. One is, so as I mentioned earlier, what will AI traffic be like for a network? Traffic type of AI learning data, training data, sorry. So obviously, AI applications are very data intensive. There's large amounts of training data being circulated from various parts of the network. Some will be contained in servers, some will be contained in the edge, some will be contained in the device. That is a lot of traffic. And somebody informed me that in 2030, that will possibly make up about 8% of network traffic prediction. So the network needs to be able to support that traffic. So when we're looking at AI for the network, but then again, what does the network need to do for AI? So it has specific requirements on the throughput, on the latency, on the reliability. You need to make sure that that data gets there reliably, it is not corrupted, it is not hacked. And also, there's a lot, we talked about it, a lot of processing power, a lot of energy consumption. The CPUs, the GPUs need to work at speed, and that is going to consume a lot of energy. So at the same time, we're looking at AI for energy savings, but AI will consume a lot of energy when it's deployed massively. Again, we mentioned it, what happens when different types of AI conflict? So AI looking at energy efficiency conflicting with AI on performance and AI reliability. So there's going to have to be some management of AI, sharing of network data, of AI data. All of this requires some sort of shared approach. Also, AI is only as good as the data. Somebody said rubbish in, rubbish out, which sounds like my life. It needs large amount of quality data and robust training data. Robust meaning you have to be able to rely on it. This brings us on, I'm surprised, I think I heard the word security. I heard the word standards. Nobody's mentioned security. And when you're giving over parts of your network to AI, you want to make sure that it's safe and secure. So in ETSI, standards body, we're looking at it in three aspects. Securing AI, so making sure that data is protected and is not corrupted. AI can be used to attack the network. It can be used to add in different attack mechanisms to network assets. So this is all about AI over the network, and I will speed up. And we've heard mainly today it's been about AI in the network. So how will network operators implement AI to improve things? So AI to manage complexity. So we heard of real-time spectrum management, anomaly detection, traffic patterns, quality of experience, quality of user experience, resource management, slice management from the days back of NFV. Reducing costs, so energy efficiency again, it's been discussed at length. Using usage patterns to bring in resource optimization, okay. Optimizing performance, so traffic shaping, load balancing, optimization of protocols, which is an interesting aspect, and also payload compression, which we mentioned earlier on, how will that payload be compressed? And on the other side, we can see how can AI be used to secure the network. So very briefly, just looking at security and safety. Securing AI data, using AI to attack the network and using AI to protect the network. So in ETSI, we standardize what needs to be standardized. ETSI, 920 members, operators, vendors, regulators, governments, all in there. And they said that security and safety is the most important aspect. So standardize what needs to be standardized at the right time. So we have a group which has evolved from an ISG, which is an innovative group, to a technical committee. Technical committee means that it will be able to produce specifications, standards for regulation, and we haven't really talked about regulation. Lord Holmes talked about it briefly. There is an AI Act coming into play. There's a Cybersecurity Act in place. If you want to deploy AI in the network, well, you're going to have to comply to regulation, and some standards will allow you to do that. So standardize what is necessary at the right time. And then, of course, so SAI is looking at 4 elements. The fourth one is new. Securing AI from attack, protecting the data, mitigating against AI attacks, using AI to enhance network security, and then societal security and safety aspects, so not letting AI get out of control and do harm. All of this is covered in TCSAI. On this side, I'm not going to go into it at great depth. So looking at how AI can be used in the network to improve the network, we have these groups in ETSI. So hopefully most people remember ISG and FE. We've been in place for at least 10 years. And they're now looking at such thing as AI ops. We have a group called ENI looking at using cognitive radio management. So people were talking about zero touch and SON models. This is something which is being studied in this group. And then ISG ZSM, zero touch network and service management. So all of these groups are looking at AI in the network. Very quickly, all of these groups are looking at AI everywhere. So we said that AI will be a little bit in the device, on the radio. If you just roll through that, AI for health, AI for autonomous vehicles, AI for IoT connectivity. So all of those groups are working on with or for AI. So again, standardize what is necessary at the right moment. Very briefly, there will be a workshop next year where we're going to discuss this further. So the standardization elements of AI. But it is, we always talk about journeys, it's the beginning of a journey, and we're all really trying to understand what is necessary to be standardized. So if you want to come along, come to our event. Thank you very much.
So there you go. Anybody who wants to go to the south of France in February, David's your man.
Come skiing.
Okay. Geoff, you are up next.
Okay. I was travelling down on a non-cancelled train yesterday after some trains were cancelled. And I was being hunted by a nameless TelecomTV person for slides. So when I got off the train, I went to the first pub that I could find. I sat down and I collected some slides for you. I feel very safe. I don't think AI will ever replace this function. So I feel very secure. I pulled together 4 or 5 slides, and I'm going to give you the perspective of Rakuten, a industry vertical across many different businesses, and how they use AI going forward, and the initiatives they've already put in place. Is quite important, and we go to the next slide, to really understand from the other businesses' point of view what is happening. Rakuten is the #1 bank in Japan, but it's not a bank. It's the #1 credit card, not a credit card, #1 travel app, not a travel services company, and it's doing telecom. This event is called Digital Service Providers. I think Rakuten is a digital service provider. And it's really important to understand that a digital service provider really just applies software and data to existing businesses, and it changes how they work. And Rakuten's been doing that over 70 different businesses. And it's the same model that goes into each one. And it's the same model they're using in telecom. And they are not a telecom company. 68% of the population in Japan have Rakuten points. It's the #1 point system. Rakuten is designing the online ecosystem into something where connectivity is part of how you behave and gets paid because of what you do, not as an explicit cost. We should note that as an observer from outside the telecom industry. It's the Amazon Prime model of connectivity and communication services. Already today, this is a slide then taken from their Q2 financial reporting. If you are a subscriber in Rakuten Mobile, they have 52% increased gross merchandise sales today. So the effects of being on the network increases 52%. The multiplication factor of services you use is over 2.5 times. The one on the left is called attribution. It drives eyeballs and engagement into digital properties. The one on the right is revenue. The reason that they can do this is because in their process of changing into a software-driven business, they have surfaced a data lake. And there is a data lake that's common across all of those businesses. And that's what drives all those businesses. Somebody said this today, many people. All of this work, in actual fact, starts with how you make decisions today. And that really starts with whether you have data to make decisions today, rather than using what most of us do, to be honest, in business, gut instinct and what you think worked yesterday. The #1 strategic advantage in every single software company is that they have digitalized every process and they have all of the data today, and they are all over AI. This then is a slide that was shown at Rakuten Technology Day. They invited 1,000+ developers, software leaders, designers to a conference. They do it once a year. And this is what the founder, Miki Mikitani, showed up. He said there's 3 different phases. First one was the internet, and it changed everything. He started Rakuten Ichiba, which, by the way, is the #1 retail site, in 1997. He started with an MVNO in about 2014, I think. The smartphone changed everything again. Literally changed everything. Everybody in the software, it's really important to understand this. I haven't met anybody that does software in the software world, runs a software business in Silicon Valley, that does not believe that AI entering into the ecosystem will change everything again. So everything is up for grabs, and that includes everything inside telecom. We have internal goals, and these, I think, are very, very real, and these have been kicked off, that we'll increase by 20% all of those groups' efficiency in marketing and effectiveness. We'll increase 20% operating efficiency, and we'll increase the efficiency and effectiveness of our clients. The online shopping service has 600,000 small to medium enterprises that all are looking to actually adopt into this AI technology. Now, these are the exercises then that the groups are taking. The details aren't important, but it's really interesting when you come down from the big discussion to the pragmatic implementation that is already ongoing. We use 2 matrix axes to decide what to do first. How easy is it to do, and how valuable is it to do? The easiest, most valuable get done first, and we step back, we step back, we step back. Inside Rakuten Mobile and the telecom, this is how we run the network already with only 200, 250 people from an automated point of view. That's rules-based. That is always reactive. We have models now that are AI-based, and that is preemptive, can be preemptive. But again, it comes down to the streaming, the granularity, and the data. So what I want to take away here is a bit the other take from the outside the industry, where people are already applying these approaches and technologies to try and actually materially improve the business. They're using AI as a tool the same way as they use software as a tool and they use data as a tool. It's not the goal. It drives a different outcome and a different level of efficiency. And we have a working model now that is almost like a live lab in Japan, where the flywheel effect is starting to happen. And we can actually show the value of data across the different places and how you can actually drive different behaviors, even if you don't own those ecosystem partners. So I'll close out on that.
Great.
And that's where I was at the end of it. So that was a half pint presentation. that is the first pint.
Okay, thank you, Geoff. And then Andrew, if you... Yep.
All right. So I took a slightly different approach, which was based on what are telcos actually going to sell to enterprises from an AI perspective. And talking to a few friends of mine who actually do sell from telcos to enterprises, the answer was, well, we find it very hard to sell connectivity today, so moving up the value chain to selling AI is going to be almost impossible. But I think they're missing something that's really important. And that is a real sea change in how customers, end users, enterprises are deploying AI themselves and how that's going to play out from the location of that. And so the convergence of the access network, ubiquitous nature of that today, the availability of edge compute, and the AI-enabled applications. So there was something in the retail market that I found really fascinating, kind of before COVID, after COVID, around fast food. And the market demanded, prior to COVID, that all the compute was on-premise for every fast food joint in every country. And the reason for that was very simple. If the network went down, you still had to be able to order a McDonald's or a Wendy's or whatever your favorite burger was. COVID changed that because now people didn't want to hang around inside the store. They used an app to purchase their burger. And so now the network became the most important thing, because if you couldn't order a burger from McDonald's on the app, then you'd go to Wendy's or you'd go somewhere else. So it put the criticality of the network first. And post-COVID, that really hasn't gone away. When I go to Starbucks, inevitably, there's only a few people queuing and everybody else has pre-ordered on their phones. I was in New York recently and did a walking tour with one of the CTOs of one of the major telcos in the US around Hudson Yard and around kind of Lower Manhattan area. And he was incredibly proud about how much bandwidth was being delivered on his phone. He was getting 1.5 gig of throughput on his latest Samsung phone. And I said, why do you need this kind of bandwidth here? This is crazy. He said, well, it's not for you and it's not for the smartphones. It's so that we can cover every business downtown Manhattan in 5G coverage and provide the resiliency we need so that we can enable our edge compute strategy. So you can see where this is going. If we can take the compute out of the stores and put it into the edge compute locations, then we have this ability to save massive amounts of cost, aggregate facilities, and so on. We've been missing, though, the killer use case. As it turns out, we at IBM believe that is the AI-enabled applications that all these retailers are starting to use. Recently at IBM, not recently, a year and a half ago or so, we acquired a company that does voice recognition for order taking for fast food restaurants. And the idea really is that you can approach one of these machines as you do drive-through and talk to it in one of 5 or 6 different languages, order your food, and it will do that with a higher level of accuracy and, of course, 24/7 compared with a human. We have this deployed in quite a few retail locations already, and today it requires a fair significant amount of compute that's on-premise. It also requires reasonably low latency, not exceptionally low latency, but reasonably low latency. It also requires to be on all the time. So you can imagine now, you can say, well, why? And by the way, in Lower Manhattan, there's something like 40 McDonald's stores, 40 Wendy's stores, 40 of every different variety of fast food joints, right? Imagine you can place the compute for that in one of just a couple of locations in Lower Manhattan. You've got the simplicity of scale, you've got the low latency, and you've got the resiliency of coverage, local breakout. And so to go back to the question of, well, what are telcos going to sell in the way of AI? What they're really going to sell is the combination of the edge compute, the breakout, the local breakout that's necessary, that's going to drive the adoption of AI in retail, and then more broadly in manufacturing and banking, and so on. And that's really the basis of which we're building our AI strategy for telcos at IBM. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Okay, so a good variety of perspectives there. So, Alexandra, if we can come to you then. At BT, can you give us a perspective of how BT is thinking about enterprise requirements, any kind of requirements, but maybe AI-specific requirements, and how BT can help with those and maybe use AI itself to help with those?
Well, I think there's an awful... Thank you. There we go. Press the button, then speak. I think there are an awful lot of parallels with what Geoff has just spoken about, and certainly with what Andrew spoke about. I'm very glad when you had your pint, you decided to cut it down, because your last slide said slide number 53, but you managed to get it down to 6. One pint, and you managed to go from 53. But actually on your slide 53, when you had a look at some of the applications that you got in there, that coalescence that we heard from Andrew about being able to use network, being able to use 5G, being able to use edge, and then having AI and the applications. And then when we start to have a look at those applications, that's exactly what our customers want us to be able to do and to deliver to them. In many instances, we've already heard today about asset tracking, we've already heard about inspections, we've already heard about defence as well. And so actually, I think the combination that you've talked about, that's exactly what we are not only talking about, but we're also delivering out to customers today.
And I mean, how far, if you go back a year, how much has the BT strategy around the use of AI changed to meet enterprise needs? Because enterprise requirements and what they want to use and how they want to use it has changed. So is what BT doing, is that changed, or has the marketing changed just?
Everything's accelerated all this year. I don't think any telco out there who has conversations with enterprise customers would say that a year ago they were having the same conversations. I think we'd all have long noses if we did. It's absolutely changed. I think that every customer's on a very, very different journey. And one customer's wow is another customer's yawn. I mean, if we think about Copilot, which in many situations is actually, a simple add-on to what we do on Teams, what we do in Word, and what we do in meetings. But actually, on a daily basis now with customers, particularly in those stand-up meetings where we're doing delivery, actually, you use Copilot At the end of the meeting, you've got a transcription of all of your meeting. You then, hit a button, you've got all of the actions, and you're ready for the day ahead. And that simple piece around productivity, which is a co-joined piece of work between you and a customer, actually is relatively simple and a relatively simple user case of AI, or in that instance is particularly GenAI. But actually for some customers, that's a real wow moment. And actually it's helping customers realize that having a co-pilot, being able to start with a draft or an artifact and then being able to go forward. You can see those productivity gains. I think you put 20% efficiency or 20% productivity gains on your slide. But actually, when you think about that, it's even greater than that. I think that, when you talked about energy, I think you said it was about 8% or 8% of the network. I think that feels quite low, especially with the acceleration that we've seen this year. So I think I challenged the 8% and I challenged the 20%.
So to come to the next question, I want to go to take the whole panel, but I want to start with you, Alexandra.
Oh gosh, right. Lucky me. What have I done? Right.
Because there's a lot of demand from enterprises, but why should they come to their telco to help them with this? Why not go to an SI? Why not go to another IT service provider, or in fact, to Meta or their cloud provider? What can a telco offer that makes them the ideal partner in this scenario and to help enterprises with their AI strategies?
Well, quite a lot of it just comes down to pure connectivity. To be perfectly honest, to be able to do everything you need to be able to do at that low latency, breakneck speed, you need, private hybrid sliced 5G. You need to have that connectivity. But we're not doing it all on our own. And I don't think any of us out there are saying it's 100% us. It absolutely isn't. Whilst the AI and the I in is for artificial intelligence, there's certainly not an I in this game. It's a we game. And actually, you need to have that plethora of partners, whether those partners are SIs, whether those partners are application providers, whether those partners are security partners as well. Actually bringing together a whole smorgasbord of partners together will deliver the solutions that customers want. The position that a BT plays in this is that actually we've got the ability to bring all of that together. From a customer point of view, they get one contract, one service wrap, one stack, one throat to choke, and we bring the lot together. But do we do it all by ourselves? No.
Okay. Andrew, from your perspective, can the telcos be that primary throat to choke? Because other companies, if we look at the example of private networks, for example, that looks like it should be a great opportunity for the telco to control and have all of the deals, but it's far from that. So is there any reason that you can see why for enterprise AI needs, where even if it's combined with 5G slicing and any other connectivity, why the telcos would be the primary supplier?
I think it goes back to my edge compute point. For the telcos that are implementing edge computing and building mini data centers, but I extend that to some of the tower companies too, who are going down that path, then by definition, they're becoming a cloud provider of one level. They're also signing up for the resiliency and connectivity that comes into that edge. And so they've kind of got everything but the app at that point. The question really is, how quickly and how fast can the telcos really scale to those edge compute facilities? And every customer they sign up is now got an interesting connectivity challenge of, well, how low in latency is it? And how quickly can I get my compute to, in replacement for the stuff that's on-prem? I think to Alex's point, you still need integrators that are going to help with moving the technology that's on-prem into the edge. So who's going to do that? It's probably, I'm maybe speaking for you, not a BT, I don't know. But you've got to really kind of combine the rest of those things and more the physical aspects of it.
Okay. Geoff, I can see you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, one perspective maybe, again, coming back to viewing Rakuten a different way. So Rakuten's built an edge network and a data lake, and it happens to run a mobile network on top of it from a software point of view. Now, to Andrew's point, at the moment, what we've done is on the edge network, we've really placed the mobile network functions to run the network. We have 70 other businesses that all have applications that all will benefit from that. They do benefit from the data lake and the performance of the edge locations as they start to become rich data enabled. So they all can benefit to a world that is very different from a deployment point of view. That's comment number one. The second comment, just coming on the data lake, it's a highly transactional data lake. All those businesses are transacting. It's very different from other data lakes. One thing we have to focus on, I think, as a massive opportunity is what this change introduces from a threat point of view. And the thing that we have heard, and I think we all believe, is that AI will be used for both good and bad. It will democratize the threat vector to allow us to actually increase fraud. So those transactions, let's say 3%, this isn't a real figure, 3% of transactions going through are actually fraud-based that don't get caught. How high will that go up when the actual sophistication of attack increases from a phishing point of view? And how much can the network enabler actually, with the trust anchor and the known identities and other assets, actually resolve that in a way that a government can turn around and say, you're a trusted broker, you have that role. I think telecom needs to stop looking back and trying to get a fair share. I think it needs to look forward and understand how it can get a fair share of something that doesn't exist in the future. And I think it's going to be incredibly different.
David, any perspective at ETSI from your members about how they can capitalise on this growing interest amongst enterprises in AI?
Well, there's 2 points really. We've seen a everybody's talked about rapid growth, but there's been a rapid growth in the activity around standardization with AI and for AI. So go back 2 years, there was very little. There was a little bit of machine learning, a little bit of autonomous network studies, but very little. Over the past 18 months, ramped up. Also, I think Rakuten are in a very good situation because they have all of the verticals in-house. That's not always the case. Often a telco will need to talk to multiple verticals, and each vertical may have a different requirement. So what we've seen in standardization is the importance of bringing these communities together. So in ETSI and in 3GPP, getting the automotive industry, getting the factory industry, getting the satellite industry around the table to describe their requirements is important. It's not just the telcos and the vendors saying this is what we think you need. It's the verticals saying this is precisely what we need. And again, Rakuten, fantastic, they have their own data lake. But imagine when you have to share data between operators, between MVNOs and operators and verticals, that data needs to be of a shared format, semantic needs to be studied. So some level of standardization and interoperability is necessary. So definitely it's the beginning of studies in standardization, but a lot more will need to happen.
I think you're spot on there in terms of what you're saying there, David, about verticalization. Not all verticals are ready. And I think that, when we talk often about regulation, we think about ourselves in our own little bubble, but actually you've got the FCA, from a financial services point of view. When we have a look at the manufacturing, we have conversations with Make UK. When we have a look at ports around the country, then we've got all of the transport or the apostrophe port regulators as well. And I think that piece around actually, just because there might be an underlying foundation doesn't mean actually the sprinkles on top are the same, and they're absolutely not. We have to make sure, and that's exactly what we're doing, verticalization solutions that meet the regulations that there currently are for us as telcos, but really making sure that we are leaning in. We obviously know across Europe we've got DORA, not the Explorer, as far as financial services regulation is concerned, and there's a huge piece there about what we need to do for artificial intelligence. So you're absolutely spot on. Verticalization, focused, working with those organisations and meeting the regulations that are needed by vertical, not just with our own sort of blinkers on for our sector.
Okay, we're going to come to the room for any questions now. I know there's one in the middle here, but if you've got any, Francis, we'll come to you, and then over to you.
And Andrew, I loved your three circle slide. The challenge with that is really the telcos have high speed access. That's a given. But the other two circles are really quite uncommon in telco. One of which is the edge. Generally, I think with the exception of actually probably Rakuten, is generally being deployed specifically for deploying the mobile network. It's not being deployed as a multi-tenancy object that could be used by other applications, some of which may be unknown. It's a very dedicated edge capability. To take the opportunity that you've got there's a massive infrastructure investment program that is needed to sort of say, ahead of the curve of knowing exactly what it will be used for, do we invest in lots of edge data centers in countries as the CSPs? The second thing is that the AI application is the other weakness in telcos. Telcos are not that great at engaging with development organizations. How do you see, and it's generally to everybody, how do you see breaking that kind of vicious circle? We can't invest ahead of the curve on the edge. We don't quite know how to develop, engage with AI developers to get that, to actually kickstart us out of that sort of vicious stasis.
Well, let's take the last point first. I don't think there's an expectation that the telcos are going to have to get specialised on all these different retail applications, to my example, or other examples in other verticals. They need to provide a common compute platform where these things can land. The sellers, purveyors of these pieces of software, whether they're IBM or from other vendors, will make the sale to the retailer and will partner with the telco to say, okay, this is how we're going to drop it. And then an integrator will help with the migration from on-prem to off-prem. That on-prem AI thing is happening right now. I mean, that's out the gate, and retailer after retailer is deploying. And just think about it from this perspective. It's not just that you deploy it once. Every retailer that's got an online menu, that menu is going to change every day. The AI model will change every day. So you've got a constant push that needs to be made through. So even if it's on-prem, you've got a huge bandwidth uptick in the things that you're going to have to deliver. So that's baked in. To the edge point, and I'll take New York as an example. There are many central offices around from the different telcos in New York, and many of them are still stuffed full of classified switches. They can't turn off the classified switches so easily because they haven't had the network resilience to convince people to turn off their fixed landline. When they have that, then they cross that boundary and they start turning off more classified switches, and they turn those into compute racks. Even when you've got a cell tower with a container, which is often the shipping container, which is often the way and what you find at the bottom of a tower, you'll find there's air conditioning, there's facilities, and you can add, maybe not very many, but you can add racks in those locations. So this is a real estate conversation. Does the telco have the real estate in the right locations, and can they convert it? They've got power in those places, they've got cooling, they've got all the other things they need, maybe not the right voltage, but that can be fixed. So I'd argue they are well placed to take advantage of this. And what's going to happen is, customer by customer or retail segment by retail segment, they will go after and say, if you were to take one retailer nationally and do this, what would it cost? And I can tell you those conversations are happening in the telco world right now.
Can I just give a real world observation for developer engagement? So last week, by the way, I've got an extra button down here. What happens if I press the black button rather than the eject? Everyone just like eject to see.
You go straight to.
Do you know how hard it is not to press the black button? I was really excited last week because for the first time there was a telecom announcement that kind of made sense to us developers, and it was from Brazil. And it was the three operators that all came together to launch digital fraud prevention APIs. Number Verify, SIM Swap, and there was a third one, I can't remember the third one. All of them are attacking real-world problems that are materially costing companies significant amounts of money. Complete, for the first time, you have a country, and it is a country-sized problem, where you have addressed the total population, and it's going to be something that people will integrate in because it's got a business case straight away and it's quite unique because of the role of the mobile phone. Here's where it turned less positive. I tried to find where the APIs were. Can't find APIs anywhere. Can't even find, through a Google search, anything to do with those APIs other than an industry standards, the camera, they've got GitHub, but they are developing. They're about 3 months old. There are 1 or 2 Brazil people in there. Why can't we as an industry launch something where it's actually available to developers when we launch it, and people can then try it, use it, no pricing, by the way, nothing. So I think the opportunity is to get better with developer engagement. If we can't digitally engage as an industry, I'm sorry, this is going to pass us by and it will go to other people. And it's a developer process life cycle problem.
But it's also, it's an amazing opportunity that we've got as a whole industry. I have the pleasure of spending a lot of time with startups and with innovators. We aren't doing it all ourselves. And actually the ability, particularly here in UK, if you have a look at the amount of money that's going from Leap, the amount of money that's going from Innovate UK into digital AI and startups, actually we've got a great opportunity as a country in terms of driving growth with AI and AI applications. But yeah, you're right, we've all got to come together, so it doesn't matter whether you're that 1 man or 2 man or 1 woman, 2 woman startup, that everybody together can develop on a platform. But, it's an exciting time. It's about growth. We should be, super excited about it. Let's stop moaning, guys. And it is mainly guys in the room, so let's stop moaning, It's, let's grow.
Okay, we've got a question here, and that, right, we'll try and get 2 more questions in, but we've got hard stop in 9 minutes, so.
Okay, so my question is a little bit different angle. So, by the way, I like this digital service provider from Rakuten. Okay, they can provide a lot of services and those things. But if you see the traditional telcos, I don't think it's so easy journey just to move from the traditional telco providing the connectivity to become the service provider. So what I'm just trying to understand, what you see the role of these traditional telcos with the hyperscaler coming, SIs coming, will they just become like a connectivity provider? And I think you mentioned the connectivity coming from telcos. So how will they evolve, or what will be the future for the telcos in this new world?
I just want to point out that that's the question we're covering over 2 days in June next year. But can somebody answer in 30 seconds?
Maybe I can give that. So I think there's a default that will happen in this edge compute world. If the telcos don't provide their own platforms in partnership with partners, then what will happen is those mini data centers, those locations will get taken over by AWS, Azure, Google. I think we've got a window of time. And I think for companies like BT, you're going to have interesting choices, like how much of the data center do you allow Amazon to come in and take over?
I think it's a partnership model, and that's one of the reasons why we've put and created a global fabric where we have put POPs in data centers, ours and third parties, and then we're working on a partnership with some of those third parties, bi-directionally as well. So global fabric, POPs in each of those data centers to be able to interconnect a web right the way across the world, so that actually it's connectivity plus it's the ability to be able to get to all of those applications.
And I should say, there are some telcos who said, we don't want any of the hyperscalers in our edge locations. And we'll see how long they hold out. Right?
Exactly. So there's sometimes it will be partnership, or it can be seen as a existential threat also, to be honest, for the telco girls.
Well, I want to take but not give, I think, is a common business practice, isn't it? So, we have a question up here.
Yeah, it's more really just point of clarification that Sandy Braith Arthur from Virgin Media O2 is a part owned by Telefonica and contributed to that announcement last week. So that third API was line busy. And yeah, a lot of those APIs, they're available in the UK, but they're served via aggregators because the banks and organizations want one call and then they go and feed those into the 3 or 4 operators to then check if that line is busy or the SIM has been swapped. So I think it is, I will definitely get you more information, but it's definitely a challenge. How do you expose it to everybody rather than just to a small aggregator channel as well?
Well, I think if the industry could get around that on a countrywide basis, I think it does have to go through an aggregate, and I think that's fine because the value is held in the back end. And then I think the application of AI-driven modeling to increase the sophistication of proving the identity of that individual is very unique from the known identity and tracking model. My comment, I think, by the way, 2 things. One is there's more opportunity in the industry than there has been for about 10 to 20 years, but the industry has to change. We have to modernize. We have to start using software ourselves to do our own business so other people can engage with software, not people. And then the second one is actually then as an industry promoting, driving that adoption. I mean, if we become the financial safety industry of the global trade, I think we can replace connectivity. I know Rakuten, like that is their business. And then if you start to materially reduce the threat of lost revenue, it is transformational.
Okay, do we have any final questions before we, yes, Lou.
Andrew, I want to come back to something you mentioned about edge, because you scared me. Putting edge into a base station is kind of scary because the infrastructure isn't there. The backhaul is not there. The power is not there. The footprint is not there. And I'm seeing the industry go that way. And I don't know if there's any other operators in here. We're seeing the providers I'm starting to see presentations about MEC and edge computing going out that way, but we're not even looking at it. And we're seeing it go to the telephone exchange and the data center. This is, being pushed out to the core network, but we're not seeing it pushed out to a base station. And that scares me because it's a complete change of infrastructure, and it's probably going to bankrupt a few people, to be fair.
Well, right, and there may be partnerships that go along with it. Again, to go to my New York example, the shipping containers that are sat on top of apartment buildings with fiber, and the telcos have led up a couple of 10 gig lambdas and have options for more. They feel they've got power available. The question is more around, well, how much can you actually cram into that little shipping container, and do you use that in concert with the central offices and other locations? And that's really the case. But every telco is going to be in a different place.
Okay, well, I think we do need to wrap up very shortly. So if I can just get a 1-sentence comment from all of our panelists on how strong you think the opportunity for the telecom operators, the communication service providers, is to provide enterprise customers with their AI needs. David, starting with you, how much real opportunity is there for the telcos in meeting enterprise needs?
I think, beyond AI, there is a lot of opportunity for telcos to serve multiple verticals. To start with, AI in the network and then AI offered to verticals as a service. So we've looked at telcos using AI in their networks. We've looked at AI over the network, but what services can telcos provide to verticals? So I think there's certainly a large opportunity, but we need to work together to define it. For the moment, even today, we've seen different terms being used for AI, generative AI, general AI. We need to work together to clarify very quickly, and I think we've said this is going to happen in a very short period of time, and then identify those opportunities and, coming back to standards, standardize only what is necessary. So I heard making APIs available, better interaction with software. These are things that we're doing in ETSI. We have software-based groups as opposed to traditional standards groups. We're working on APIs. So we need to modify and evolve very quickly. In a sentence or two.
Geoff, Rakuten's an outlier here. It has a model that others don't have. For the non-Rakuten telcos, who you are talking to on a very regular basis, what is the opportunity for them to help enterprises with the enterprise AI needs?
There is a large opportunity that appears as a phase 2 after the ability to modernise the operations and engagement model of a traditional telco. All telcos are working on that as a priority because it's a cost efficiency program, and they can't afford not to. I think the second comment, which is just I am actually a closet American. I just don't sound like that. I think from afar, the UK is very interestingly positioned to lead in the telco future. I think you've got policy drivers, you've got operators trying to do the right things. I think it will become a country thing, and I think if we can get it right in a country, then we can get it right in other countries.
Okay, don't often hear that. The UK leading in global.
I'm trying to be positive. That's
great.
That's the American in me.
Honestly, it's usually the Brits that are talking the Brits down. So.
The figures he left out was the ARPU gain in the UK compared to the US. That helps focus the mind really quickly.
It certainly does. Alexandra.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely a momentum behind us here in the UK. From a telco point of view, AI absolutely has a part to play, but it's part of a wider offering. And so when we think about that verticalization offering to customers want to get on with what they are doing. And so therefore, for us, it might be airport as a service, it might be seaport as a service, it might be stadium manufacturer, financial services as a service. And within that as a service model, that can be anything from your WAN, your LAN, your 5G, it can be your AI, it can be your cloud and everything else. So I think that AI absolutely for telcos has a part, but it's absolutely within an as a service model across a vertical set of propositions for a set of customers.
Okay, and Andrew.
Yeah, well, I think in many ways Edge has been a solution looking for a problem until now. And boy, is this problem huge. And is that going to change how every experience we have? Opportunity.
It's better.
Opportunity. What did I say?
You said problem.
Problem. Opportunity. Yes, there we go.
The problem was finding the opportunity.
It was, and I think now we have that. And to the point around, so does that drive Edge spend? Then certainly the opportunities that we're seeing and how that's playing out with telcos we're working with is absolutely how they're seeing where they should play and why retailers or why manufacturers should come to that.
Yeah. And I'm sure the telcos that are selling off large parts of their local exchange real estate have this in mind and know exactly what they're doing in terms of monetizing that, but we'll find out. So just like to thank the panel here. Good way to end the day. Guy is going to close us out in a second, but let's give a round of applause for our final panel.